Okay guys, by now you've gotten your sales binders. Shows all the equipment, what the prices are for DirecTV, what the prices are for Dish Network. I'm just going to go over the equipment in this video, and basically I'm going to start with Dish Network's equipment. There's a lot more equipment with Dish Network than there is with DirecTV. You'll probably catch on to DirecTV's equipment much quicker than you will with Dish. But we're going to start with Dish Network's equipment, and I'm going to start from the most simple receiver and work my way up to the most advanced. I'm going to talk about two pieces of equipment at the same time first. The first receiver that I'm going to talk about is the 322. The 322 is a dual tuner receiver, which means that it can control two different TVs at the same time. So it basically plugs into one television, and then it picks up a remote frequency off of the second television. So you don't have to have any cables or wires or anything connected to the second TV. It just picks up a signal, which is pretty cool. So the 322 is pretty old. It controls two TVs, and both TVs will be in standard definition. You can't get high definition with the 322. The other piece of equipment, just like a 322, is called a 311. A 311 will control one TV, and it's in standard definition as well, no HD. Erase that. The next receiver is a 625. So if you're following along with your first page in your sales binder, that's where you're going to find all this equipment that I'm going over. And the 625 controls two TVs. And just like the 322, both of those TVs are in standard definition. Now, the difference between the 625 and the 322 is the 625 is actually a DVR. It'll actually record shows for you. Pause, rewind, fast forward, and record. And it'll do that on both of your TVs. So DVR on two TVs. And it'll store about 100 hours worth of standard definition. So again, this is a 625, and it'll control two different TVs, both of which will be in standard definition, both TVs. It'll also record on both TVs, and it'll record up to about 100 hours worth of recording. That's the 625. So if you run into a customer that has a 322, a 311, or a 625, they definitely need upgraded, because those pieces of equipment are really, really old, and it's probably pretty slow. And they probably have a flat screen TV and they're not getting a high definition picture. So definitely want to upgrade them. You'll probably hear me talk about tuners, and tuners are really important to understand what they are. Basically, what a tuner is, how many tuners a piece of equipment has, it basically tells you how many different things the receiver can do at one time. So if a receiver has two tuners, it can do two different things at one time. For example, the 322 has two tuners. The reason why it has two tuners is because it does two things at one time. It controls one TV, and it also controls a second TV. Just like the 322, the 625 has two tuners. It'll control two TVs, but it'll also allow you to watch a show on one TV while another show is being recorded at the same time. So that would be two tuners. So really important that you remember that. Tuners are how many different things a receiver can do at the same time. And DVR is basically just a hard drive, so it's like a computer. So any receiver that has DVR, it's just memory, like a computer. This is a really common receiver. The next receiver I'm going to talk about for Dish. You'll probably run into this quite a bit. this is called a 222. Now what a 222 is, a 222 is a receiver that controls two TVs, just like a 322. The only difference between a 222 and a 322 is a 222 will have high def on one of the TVs. The TV that is plugged into the 222 can be in high def. There's an HDMI cable that can be plugged in. The second TV, however, will only be in standard definition. So that's really important to remember, because if a customer has a 222, I mean, nowadays almost everybody has flat screens. That second TV is not getting the same picture quality that that first TV is getting. So definitely want to upgrade them. Alright, the next receiver, and this is a very common one as well, this is called a 211. And it's real simple. A 211 has one tuner. It controls one TV if it has one tuner. It can do one thing at a time. And it's an HD. So it's basically just an HD receiver. 211, one TV, HD. Moving right along. And you can research this stuff online. Like, you can go to dish.com or dishnetwork.com or directv.com, and you can look up at all the equipment online, research it yourself, educate yourself. Definitely recommend doing your own research on this stuff. But I'm just trying to give you the Cliff Notes version so you guys are ready to rock and roll tomorrow. Okay, so the next receiver, and this is the most common that you'll run into. It's called a 722. This is the most common receiver that you run into with Dish Network customers. So very important that you understand what a 722 does. Alright, a 722 has two tuners, just like a 222 and a 625. But a 722 is like an HD DVR. So, just because a receiver, I want you to know this because it'll make more sense when we get to DirecTV's equipment. Just because a receiver has two tuners doesn't mean it controls two different TVs. Okay, so that's really important to remember. Dish Network has equipment that does that, DirecTV does not. So the equipment with Dish is a little bit more complicated to understand, but once you get it down, you'll be making a lot of money. So once again, this is the most common. It's a 722, and it controls two TVs. The first TV is a high def TV, and then the second TV comes in standard def. Now both TVs do have the ability to have DVR, so you can pause, rewind, fast forward, and record on both TVs. And a 722 will allow you to store about 200 hours worth of recording. So a 722 is basically the exact same thing as a 222, except it allows you to record shows. So this is by far the most common receiver you will run into with Dish Network. Okay. Moving right along. This will probably be the longest video that you have to watch. Just because there's so many different pieces of equipment for Dish Network. After the 722, there's a receiver that's a 922. It's basically the same thing as a 722. They're very, very rare, so I'm not going to get into that. You can look that up on your own if you want. But basically does the same thing as a 722. It's just a little bit bigger of a storage, a little bit bigger of a hard drive, so you can record more hours. Next to the 722 and 211, the next most common that you run into is the Hopper. And I'm sure you guys have seen all the commercials. The Hopper. Alright, and then the Hopper gets teamed up with what's called a Joey. That's the Hopper's best friend. Okay? Now the Hopper has three tuners. And it'll be HD and DVR on all the TVs. Up to three. Up to three TVs. Because it only has three tuners. So you can't can't do a Hopper and 3 Joeys because you would have to do a Hopper Super Joey. I'll explain that here soon. But this is what a Hopper does. A Hopper, like I said, it gets teamed up with a Joey. So you'll have a Hopper on the main TV, usually in the living room, and then on the second and third TV will be a Joey and a Joey. So you can actually have a Hopper on one TV with no Joeys, but most of the time it's usually a 2 TV or a 3 TV household. So you either got a Hopper and a Joey or a Hopper and 2 Joeys. So the Hopper has 3 tuners, which means you can record up to 3 shows at a time, or you can watch a show while 2 shows are being recorded at the same time. And like I said before, HD and DVR on all the TVs, up to 3. That's the Hopper. Now, if a customer has more than 3 TVs and they have dish, and you see that they have a Hopper, most likely they have a Hopper Super Joey. This is like the top of the line equipment that Dish has right now. Hopper Super Joey. Now, instead of 3 tuners, the Hopper Super Joey has 2 more tuners added to it, so it now has 5. So with 5 tuners you can do a lot of things. You can record up to 5 shows at a time. And just like the Hopper and the Joeys,